Well, in a more celebratory mode, the yearly celebration of the founding of the Organization of African Society was founded some years ago, and ever since then, the Africa Day has been celebrated. Now, before now, it was called the Africa Liberation Day, where we're celebrating the freedom of Africans generally, and it was founded on the 25th of May, 1963. So today is Africa Day, Africa Freedom Day, Africa Liberation Day, call it whatever. It is just Africa Day, and like Bennett said, World Africa Day. Now, this day is observed to recognize the achievements and potential of the African continent, which is celebrated across the globe and around the world. Now, the 2023 Africa Day, the theme is accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, that's the AFCFTA, to bring greater prosperity to the continent. Now, the AFCFTA is all about reducing tariffs and integrating more intra-continental trade. So that's what we will be celebrating this year. Although Africa faces numerous challenges like every other continent of the world, but regardless, Africa is a continent that boasts of a young and entrepreneurial population, significant natural resources, rapid urbanization, dynamic economies, and a supportive diaspora. Now, like they say, Africa is one of the richest, if not the richest continent in the world. But because of how resources have been mismanaged and because of how there's still no integration and no unity in the continent, it looks as though we are the poorest. Let's take a look at this package, and when we come back, we'll talk more about Africa Day.
The share of intra-African trade remains low compared to intra-regional trade in other parts of the world. What could be responsible for this?
The two largest economies in Africa are Nigeria and South Africa. And it is shameful that the volume of trade is just about $3 billion US, which is principally from the export of crude oil from Nigeria to South Africa. Africa can do better in intra-continental trade relations.
In an essay, Vera Songwe, economist and former executive secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, highlighted the potential for intra-regional trade to increase by between $50 billion and $70 billion by 2040, solely due to the removal of tariffs, adding that this could push intra-regional trade up to 50% of exports by 2040, up from the current 17%.
What is the status of this regional agreement? So what is the status of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? If we compare it with robust economic integration arrangements, whether that's the EU, obviously starting from the European Economic Community that was then transformed or changed to the Economic Community, the European Community, and then changed to the European Union. Very early on in those treaties in the EEC, it was actually stated that member states that have signed up actually have committed themselves to giving up certain degrees of their sovereignty and transferring that to a supranational organization to oversee. And for a lot of those countries, they had to come back within their states to pass laws, in effect, giving that provision superiority.
Unlocking Africa's full economic potential would require a lot of action from the member states, from economic integration to investment in infrastructure for connectivity. But what role could the AFCFTA AFTA play in ensuring that Africa reaches its full economic potential?
So these are not tariff, because the tariff clearly has been removed, but then they're non-tariff barriers and are really, and have been actually, the bane of intra-regional trade on the African continent, whether we're looking at the ambitions of ECOWAS or the ambitions of the East African Community, the ambitions of SADC, and the various other regional economic communities.
AFTAC is just a name of an association. It is imperative for the success of intra-African trade to hinge on the preparedness and the commitment of each African country and their governments to ensure that they live up to the letters and the spirit of all the agreements.
As stated by the Africa Development Bank, Africa is emerging as an attractive investment destination and a key market for goods and services. with a working population of 600 million set to double by 2040, overtaking China and India, and an improving business environment, Africa is poised to become the world's next emerging economy. To turn its economic gains into sustainable growth and shared prosperity, Africa's public and private sectors must work together to connect the continent's markets, deepen regional integration, and adopt reforms that enhance competitiveness. Perpetua Fasami-Peter reporting for News Central.
And joining us to unpack this beautiful continent we call Africa, motherland, cradle of civilization, is none other than our own Dapo Adegboye, who is the king of celebration. You can see him there in his African attire. Dapo, I think this is the right time and place and day to say I celebrate you. I celebrate you so much. I celebrate you. And I will welcome you in African dialect. Eku, what is that? No, hang on.
Anyway, a disaster.
This is Eku Odu Africa.
No.
Okay,
blessings is your shot.
I think you want to correct him, right?
Ekwojo is better.
Ekwojo Africa.
No, don't put the Africa. Okay. It's just basically a happy celebration of the day.
Exactly.
Ekwojo of the day.
Ekwojo or
whatever it is that I celebrate you.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all about celebration right now.
Definitely.
In some African countries, it's actually a public holiday today.
True.
I know that, I was having a conversation with a friend in Zambia, and she was telling me that today happens to be a PH. That's what they call it there. And I'm like, PH here means Port Harcourt. So I was in
that's city entirely.
Do you mean you're in Port? She said, no, it's public holiday. But I think over there it's called Africa Freedom Day.
Right? You know what I think it should be? I think it should be a festival day. I think that everybody should come out in their cultural attire and have festivals, right? Share cultural dishes, things like that. Because a lot of people don't even know that it's Africa Day.
Speak their native language.
I think the day, the celebration itself is not getting the desired attention.
A lot of people don't even know.
I think every school should celebrate it. Every office should celebrate it. It should be a continental public holiday. As a matter of fact. But anyway, let's quickly jump into this now. Dapo, let's actually talk what makes us Africans, right? Which is celebrating our culture in, our cultural diversities, basically. Now, how would you exactly say that this has helped Africans, our culture, acculturation, like some people say, cultural blending, and all of that? Bearing in mind that, unfortunately, there are those who are waving or dancing away from traditional African culture and imbibing the cultures of other countries and other continents. So what exactly is the significance of this day to us as Africans?
Well, I mean, that's a really, really topical question, if you ask me. And I will tell you that right now, with urbanization, with the social media, with cross-cultural, integration right now, to some extent, you would want to say that is the core African culture or the core African norm and tradition, is it really thriving? That's a big question. Now, it's as simple as, asking maybe your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old, your 10-year-old to speak their native language. How many of them can comfortably construct a sentence, right, in their local dialect, in their native language? That's where, before we now go to, lifestyle and what have you. I think as much as, yes, we have festivals and days like this to remind us of our true identity, to a very large extent, I think it's also being lost, right? Some people are even ashamed of their culture. Some are ashamed of their local dialect. I've seen cases where some people say, I don't speak that, right? And it's really, really sad. Even though we are beginning to see a bit of effort, particularly in Nigeria, for instance, in the entertainment space, we see that a couple of artists are beginning to, bring culture, and tradition and even language back, through entertainment to the consciousness of people. But I think when it comes to training, when it comes to conscious effort of sort of passing that knowledge, I think it's been lost. And let's look at our educational system. Let's even start from there, the elementary level. How many schools still take the Yoruba language or the Igbo language, for instance? I remember growing up, right? We've been around for a while. And I know that...
ancient of days.
And I know that back then in school, for the WAEC, or what you call the secondary school, there was Yoruba. I think there was even a particular one I did that it was just Yoruba. I had like
there was also Hausa. I think that's where I learned a bit of Hausa.
And there was Igbo.
Yeah, but guess what? Although it was I think it was a selective course, it wasn't compulsory, right? But we were made to take it, right? But these days, I don't think people have that luxury anymore. I used to crack a joke then. I would say some people, you know, back then in our days, you have some people who study industrial Yoruba or industrial Igbo. But these days, it looks like we don't even have any of that reflected in the school curriculum anymore, right? So for me, I think it starts from there. And then let's even look at it at the family level. In some families, they don't even know where they come from. Some have never visited their hometown, right? Because they believe that, will I call it witch now? Or someone that is believed to be responsible for the misfortunes of the family.
Exactly.
Village people, quote and unquote, right? They would jinx them and, you know, it would bring bad luck. So for that reason, some people can't even trace their way back home. So this, I won't call it little, but these things that we consider as seemingly little are actually the small foxes that are spoiling the vine. So I think we really need to retrace our steps when it comes to, you know, we being Africans,
right,
our true identity, right? And I think it has to be a conscious effort.
Very true. Very well said, Dapo. It really has to be a conscious effort. Now, looking at the need for the continent to unite on an intra-continental level that we have been discussing for the longest time now, I think that the theme is timely, which is the focus on highlighting the opportunities in various regions of the continent, and most importantly, providing a platform for African companies to connect. Now, the theme basically talks about the AFCFTA, that's the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement. And the AFCFTA basically deals with reducing tariffs for African continent or African countries, rather, to trade freely and a little bit less expensive. You know, for the longest time, we've been talking about how the continent needs to unite to ensure good governance and also economic prosperity. I said earlier in my introduction that Africa is one of the richest continents in the world because we have vast, major resources. But because of the fact that we do not harness these resources and we're not united, basically, it shows as though we are the poorest. And even if not the poorest, we're the ones not exploiting, or what would I say, exploring our resources enough. So this theme is timely in the sense that we need to discuss how African continents, why do I keep saying continent? Well, we're that big, we're a continent. African countries can, you know, unite to reduce this. If we're talking about importing and exporting, is a different ballgame, but this is an intracontinental business that should be less stressful, less cumbersome, and less expensive. So I think that the theme is coming timely. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, Dapo, if you don't mind, I wouldn't agree. I couldn't agree more, to be honest, right? We see the resources coming out of Africa in terms of manpower, you know, human resources, in terms of natural resources. If you are looking for cobalt, that's that's a major ingredient in building batteries for cell phones, it comes from DR Congo. You're looking for crude oil, it comes from Nigeria. You're looking for gold, diamond from Southern Africa. You know, you're looking for, you can pick every region of Africa and tell, you know, the amount of resources that we have in those regions. But the problem is utilization of these resources, right? Such that these resources go out as crude material to other continents and then come back as finished goods, and we have to buy them all over again. So it's about time that, you know, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, for the longest time, I haven't been able to pronounce that AFCFTA, honestly speaking. Thank you, blessings. Anyway, it's about time that we harnessed the advantages that these organizations bring and the resources that we have.
I think trade agreements are the best thing that can happen to any country or any organization or will I call it a regional mapping, so to speak. And the reason is this, right? The economy is the bedrock of survival of any country, and that's the fact. Now, the truth is this, right? I think the bottom line is that how many of these countries, how many of these states are actually stable enough to encourage the economy to blossom? how many countries in Africa are actually producing countries and not consuming countries, right? These are real issues that we really need to ask. How many of them are politically stable, right? So for these trade agreements to really hold grasp, yes, we know that there's also the issue of compliance. We also need to look at the root cause. I think in the case of Africa, our issue isn't about resource availability. You mentioned cobalt in Congo, right? We have lithium, we have oil, you know, and all of that. The issue has always been management. In a country like Nigeria, for instance, let's look at the non-oil resources that is being, you know, plundered and unaccounted for, right? We have all of that happening. So I think the idea is not all about the availability of resources right now, but the management, and also a conscious effort to ensure that these things are well utilized. So for things like, for prosperity to happen, number one, we need political stability and also willpower. And also, we also need a situation whereby we have more producing industries than, you know, consumption that we currently see across, you know, African countries.
Right. I think that's very well said again, Dapo. I mean, you are an African advocate. Have you ever thought about being in the United Nations or something? But anyways, thank you so much for for representing our interests and our opinions.
Maybe someday. Really, I nominate you for United Nations, Dapo.
Really, it is, I mean, Nigerians say you reach to ask. It really is enough to ask whether or not we have more producing than consuming regions on the African continent. But thank you so much, Dapo. Please be on standby. You take us through the forecast, look into the crystal ball and tell us what we're expecting. But in the meantime, we're still celebrating Africa Day and we have a clip for you to see. Do take a look.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are celebrating Africa Day here, and we've touched politics, security, entertainment, business, and sports. Of course, I am Onyinyechi Obaro, but it's time to welcome the full house and the soldiers celebrating Africa Day today. All right, let's have you. Okay, we can see the Dapo Benga Agborowa, of course. You always come with the drama. You're welcome, guys. It's been a wonderful day, but I need to know, Rita, you're glowing.
Yes,
so
thank you.
What tribe are you representing right now?
So I'm representing Rwanda. This is called the Umushana. It looks quite Indian, but it is actually Umushana. And it's used during traditional events. For example, wedding, funerals is worn by royalties. You have this corset in, and then you have the drape, and then you have a wrapper tied around.
Rita, you have not been there before.
I wish you could get
come
like
on.
this conversation every day.
Rita, have you got to Rwanda before?
I haven't got New Central with there. We're everywhere right now.
All right.
Africa first.
Yeah.
Let's have Benga. Benga, come on, tell us.
Yes, I'm a Yoruba boy from Ondo State. So I'm giving them full Yoruba glory. I'm a Yoruba angel today.
I like the emphasis on glory, not demons. No.
All right, okay. Business?
Okay, so the carpet represents Africa being king. Of course, I'm a Yoruba man, and that is very important.
Okay.
Africa is king. It also depicts respect for Africa. Then you look at this is dashiki with the black represents African strength. And of course, the gold means Africa's dexterity, prosperity, and growth.
I'm representing the Fulani people. You know, the Fulani people aren't particular to one country. They moved around. And so I'm African. You know, I'm from everywhere in Africa. Thank you.
All right, and for me, I'm representing the Ashanti tribe of Ghana. So Ashanti Nimi Charlie. All right, I am Onyinyechi Obaro.
And I'm Benga Aborowa.
I am Rita Omodia.
I am Lekon Obanjo.
And I'm Amiola.
Can we all just say Happy Africa Day?
Happy Africa Day!
That's how we roll in New Central.
I mean, that was
fantastic.
Really, that was beautiful
really
to watch. You know, when I saw Benga Aborowa's outfit, I really saw that it was a Yoruba outfit, but he had to use the red bead. And you know what they say about Yoruba men on social media? So the red bead to me was like, I will show you Pepe, you know, Pepe.
What kind of Pepe? Shombo or Atarodo?
But they all looked fantastic,
Yes,
really.
Listen, see the way I'm looking at you. Like, What's that? What they say about Yoruba men? What did they say?
What did they say about you, guys?
No, they call us Yoruba angels. Not the other way.
Who does?
They.
No, I will take the argument outside.
That's why I celebrate you.
I celebrate you too. But really beautiful though.
Definitely.
And Bernard, I was hoping to see you. Probably your full.
Don't mind Bernard. I don't know.
Look who's talking.
Honestly, I'm just so disappointed.
I'll be honest with you. I had a couple of interviews I had to do today. One of them was the report you saw earlier, and that kind of took. And then there was a little bit of wardrobe malfunction. But I'll do my own Africa Day part 2.
You know what I'll say about mine? I would say that we're celebrating Africa Day. Yeah. And I think when we're talking about the history of Africa, we talk about colonialism. So I think that's why I am dressed the way I'm dressed. So regardless of the colonial interference in our culture and traditions, we still stood out. We still fought our way back to freedom. Amazing. I like that. Oh, I'm so proud of myself.
Anyways, this is actually lovely. I mean, this is how we do in New Central. Yes. We go with Africa, and you can never forget the fact that New Central is Africa first. And once again, I would like to say Happy Africa Day to everybody out there. And I do believe that someday soon, this day will actually be a public holiday across the continent.
Hopefully.
I mean, watching the clips really make me so happy.
They do make me happy. Anyway, from all of us here at New Central, my name is Bernard Akede, wishing you a happy Africa Day.
And my name is Dapo, Adegboye too. Wishing you happy.
You see what they say about Yoruba people. You see what they say about Yoruba men. You couldn't even wait for the lady. Well done, Dapo. Anyways, do have a lovely week, and we see you again same time. Same
Happy Africa Day
Happy
to
Africa
you.
Day.